Hey, this is Leah from Mandala Studios. Welcome to the workshop. This is our video on making a bird mask, trimming and painting. So we're starting this one with a mask already cast. It's one that's from a mould we've already got. We've cast it in latex and I'm just trimming around the edges, cutting off all the bits we don't want. This is one of our avian masks and the edges of this one are really quite fiddly. It's got little feathery bits, so I'm going around each feather, cutting them out. I'm trying to cut with the scissors at an angle, sloping under the back of the mask of each feather because it gives it a much nicer look. It makes them look a much smoother rounder look. We're also cutting out the eyes. On this particular mask, where the eyes are is really obvious. It's got a really nice solid line. Some of our masks that's the case, some they're not. It's something you need to think about when you're sculpting. If you're not sure of the eye shapes of the people wearing it, then you might want to at that point leave them a little bit of room to cut to suit them. For this one it works pretty well. It's a little domino mask, so it goes over the eyes and the nose but doesn't cover the mouth and doesn't cover the whole head. This is to look like a golden eagle, so these are the colours that we're using here. We can see we've got the yellow and the grey on the beak, and we've got some tan over brown in the feathers themselves. I'm starting off with that brown. I'm mixing up paint, so we've got brown paint in there. I think we've got a little bit of a red, and we've got some prosthetic adhesive in order to give the acrylic paint that flex to it. Painting it all on, and I'm doing most of the feathers in this, but I'm leaving a bit near the beak and not painting over that section. So I'm getting into all the corners, making sure I cover the edges and making sure I've covered the outer edges of the feathers. Now I'm going to mix up a white paint. A lot of the paints we use are quite translucent. For example, the yellow we use. If I put a white base on, it means that the colours there will show much better than if I just paint it onto plain latex. On plain latex I'd have to do many layers in order to get the same effect. So I'm checking I've got all the corners of that one. I'm making sure I'm happy that it's symmetrical, goes to the same place on both sides, and checking it against the picture to make sure that matches how it needs to look at this point. Got a hairdryer, just means that the paint dries a little bit faster, and I can put a second coat on there and get a nice smooth even coat of the white. So this one's a grey. We're putting a few grey details onto the mask here. Again, we're mixing it with some prosthetic adhesive to give the paint the stretch. A little bit on the end of the beak in grey, and I think there was a little bit of feathers towards the top of the face in grey as well. Sides of the face, that was it. So here's our yellow. It's a nice bright yellow. We will be going over this with an airbrush. These are the initial colours we put on, and I'll probably also do some dry brushing in a minute. I will also do some dry brushing in a minute. I got yellow where I shouldn't there, so I had to take that off carefully. So that's the yellow on the mask, and it's coming back just a little bit into the face of the bird as well. You can use this to subtly change the beak shape, because this is one of our avian masks, but if you use the shaping and where you're putting the paint, you can just change angles a bit. So we have a bit of a yellowy buff here, and we're taking this up into the eyebrows of the mask. I think we use some of the grey in that as well. And we're dry brushing that, so we're not coating them in paint, we're just bringing out the texture of the feathers to give it a more interesting look. So with the airbrush, we're starting with a brown airbrush, and we're going over especially those bits where I've put that tan colour, and smoothing the transitions between it so we don't have those really stark edges and everything looks a bit more natural. You can see the dry brushing quite nicely there, and how with the brown it really brings out the depth of the feathers. And now this is a black which we'll use around the eyes, around the edges of the beak, and a few of the other lines. And again, it just makes everything pop. Hides the transitions, adds a little bit more variation and a little bit more visual interest. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share.